The, the theory in science is that schizophrenics, not always, and I don't want to say it for other mental health disorders. I do know it's true for schizophrenia. I don't know about bipolar and other ones. But what happens is not everybody who has schizophrenia this happens to, but a decent proportion of people who have active schizophrenia, this does come up in their, their bodies when they're, post-mortem, they study and everything. That in their DNA, I don't know if it's because since they have that, they don't say there's a gene for mental illness, but you know what I mean? Like since they have that propensity in them, what it is they're born with some kind of coding in their, unique molecular structure that has the coordinates or whatever for schizophrenia to become active. While my mom was a child and adolescent, it was what they call dormant, which basically just means it's just laying there. It's like a sleeping child. It's not doing anything. But the theory about schizophrenia is that you would have this recessive gene for the mental illness. However, you could spend your whole life having that and then nothing, you don't get the mental illness, okay? It's like you had it was just laying there, this possibility, but it was never activated. All right, now watch this. Since my mom went through, severe trauma with a polio because, when she got it, she was bedridden for 2 years. She's a young child. They had just moved to a new city, so she was trying to make new friends. It was like the first year they were in the new place. And her brother also got it, so his condition was almost worse. So it's like, this is a high stress situation. All right. And then not only is her arm like completely withered because it didn't grow as long as it hit one arm. I don't know how that all works, but so she had a deformed arm. It happened to be her dominant arm, her right arm. So that atrophied. So then she had, she'd be carrying around this sort of dead weight of I remember when I was a kid, she would always sort of put her hand on the arm that was messed up and then she would move it to do stuff. Like she'd move her arm around to get it to, pick up a fork or whatever. But it's like, it's not like her brain could tell it a message like, extend your hand to put the token in, the bus, whatever that's called, where it takes the change. Because it wouldn't work. You could tell it all day, but if you don't have muscles and strength and you don't, and the message receivers or the messages that are sent are not received, then like, nothing's going to happen. So anyway, so she had that. Then she had to wear on her spine this metal rod all the way up her spine because this is like the 50s. Okay, they don't have like a lot of fancy stuff. There's no robotics. And so it was like this real metal rod up her back just because her spine, they were worried it was going to be curved or like, somebody who has like scoliosis, like it was not going to be straight just because of the polio. So, and then it came like with this like band that went around her neck. And so you can imagine you have a metal rod on your back. It's pretty hard to hide under clothes. Then you have this, it looks like a retainer band, around your neck, connected. You're going to get bullied. You're going to get treated like you're weird. There's just no way around it. So that's a lot of stress on one person. Plus, you got to understand she's also going to the same school with her brother, who had his legs were the muscles in his legs were atrophied, or like, so he had to either be in a wheelchair or to have those kind of, they look like ski poles, but people use them, have like muscular dystrophy, I think. Anyway, the whole point of why I'm telling you this, I know it's long and boring, is because of the stress of that trauma, all the things I just told you, plus she was almost raped, kidnapped in high school, which is kind of an unusual experience on her way walking home from school. So that's a lot of stress, trauma, right, on one human being who's not even fully developed yet. And she was very introverted too. She was quiet. All right. Very intelligent, but quiet. So the DNA strand with the dormant schizophrenia, it is because all that trauma, it's going to wake it up. It's going to, like, the child's going to wake up and start jumping on the bed, okay? It's active. Congratulations, you have schizophrenia. So intergenerational trauma is similar in that all the trauma from those grandparents I was talking about who were in the war, that's going to go through the parents. So those are those young kids that finally grew up. And they're going to pass said markers for it. I don't like using that word because that's like a scientific thing. Okay. The propensity for it to be activated, it would be like they would inherit like all the things PTSD, like anxiety or depression or insomnia or just maybe they have a stutter, maybe they have social awkwardness. I mean, like all these things that are everything that has to do with like a stressed, overburdened system, a system that is overwhelmed and unable to care for itself. Because as you know, like if someone has the flu and then they get, another illness on top of it, it's like they're going to be doubly, burdened. So it's similar to that. It's like you're passing on this big ball of stress and anxiety and all the manifestations of that, whatever they turn into, to your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, etc. But it's much like the dormant gene theory, where it's like if that person is not heavily taxed or stressed themselves, it might just be it doesn't become into fruition. Just like the example I gave about my mom. So it just means you could have these things manifest or not, depending on your environment, which we already know from sociology and psychology, that environment, how you're raised, what is your learned experience, like from what, who were the people who were raising you, what did you learn from them, or where you were most of the time, if that's like hanging out with friends or at school or whatever, like whatever that is, you're going to copy and mimic it and try to fit in with it because that's all you know. Okay, this is how racists are born, because they are in a household with family members who are racist themselves. They teach them that either by the words they use or say to each other about a group of people, or it's just like a culture of ignorance in the home. Like they make terrible jokes about minorities, or, people who are, what they consider fringe or less than. All right. So these are all the things that can cause intergenerational trauma to come down. So that's one level of it. And there's like a lot of controversy, like a lot of people who don't even like psychology, or they're just not interested in that. So, they question it and think it's just like an exaggerated explanation. That's not true, but like any true scientist who studies bodies and like the mind is gonna have to like, accept that this is real. Okay, so curse breakers, totally different. So like with the intergenerational trauma, what you're trying to do is unlearn all the toxic patterns that are being passed down to you. Like, let's say the family has had, generations of like diabetes or whatever, and it's from poor eating, high sugar, fats, whatever. It's like their diet. It could be a cultural consideration with the foods they're using, ingredients. So if you wanted to stop that patterning in your own children or yourself as an adult, you would just change how you obviously nutrition and exercise. I'm not going to bore you with all that. We all know that. Then those children who came after would only know that lifestyle, right? They would never know, because it's starting over. It's taking the pattern, breaking it, and starting over with a new, healthier, I don't know what you want to call it, healthier plan. But anyway, so that's the whole point of like intergenerational. You want to break the patterns, the bad behaviors, like if there's anger, if there's a lot of gossiping, if there's a lot of like the way people treat each other in the family's poor, if there's a lot of paranoia or jealousy or affairs or poor self-control or addictions, all these things can be examined. So like the 3-point series is like, you would first name the thing, then you would state how you could change it, and then you would implement the plan that you come up with to tackle it. So that's okay. So that is how you can change. And once you change that, haven't you ever heard that phrase like, this stops with you? Or like, or people will be like, if they like, let's say everybody in their family has been codependent, and like the women have never like even known how to do stuff on their own. Like they've always depended on a man, even if these relationships with men were problematic or unhealthy. And then like somebody comes along in the family, niece, daughter, sister, whatever, and she declares, I'm not going to live like that. I'm going to figure out how to do things myself. I'm going to go out of my way to learn. I'm not going to be dependent on something. If I'm with a man, it's because I want to be, because I enjoy their company, because if I want to build a life with them, it's not because I want them to do things for me that I'm perfectly capable of doing myself. I just like have been taught by like generational patterns that learned helplessness. That's the word. So that female would then be breaking the patterning. So you see what I mean? So that's all like common sense, self-help, psychology, learned behaviors, that kind of stuff. That's all that. Okay, now generational curse breakers, completely different. Generational curse